Let's talk equity, vesting and investment. These are critical for creating a fair and transparent foundation. Have open discussions about equity splits, handling co-founder exits, your philosophy on the employee equity pool, and the effects of external funding. Getting this right from the start ensures everyone's interests are protected and set up as a solid, equitable partnership. So, Christoph, how is equity shared?
So what is the best way to split the equity of your newly founded company among all founders? There's obviously no answer that fits every situation, but the most straightforward approach is a very good starting point. Just split the equity evenly among all founders. I would say this is a very good allocation by default because it makes it clear that there is one founding team. Everybody is needed equally to make your startup a success. By splitting the equity evenly, you as a founding team also acknowledge that all functions are equally important for the success of your business. You're not saying that, for example, technology is more important than, let's say, marketing. If you want to be successful, you will need all business functions to work together, and you will need top performers in all of these areas. Another way to look at it is that you will ideally want to start your business with co-founders who have different and complementary skills. But as individuals, you want to equally respect and appreciate what they bring to the table. You will need to assign roles in a certain way in the beginning, but those roles aren't static and will evolve over time. What stays the same is the appreciation that you have for your co-founders and their unique talents. Just to be clear, I'm not trying to say that you absolutely have to split the equity evenly. But if you are able to, if it makes sense to everyone, then I think it's a pretty good indication that you are on a successful track. In the context of the initial allocation of equity, you will probably also want to discuss with your co-founders what happens in a scenario where one of you decides to leave and do something else. What are the consequences of such a step? The amount of work that needs to be done remains the same, but it now rests on fewer shoulders. In many cases, you will need to find someone else to take over the work of the person who leaves. Sometimes, especially very early on, it makes sense to consider the person who newly joins a co-founder. In other cases, you may consider them an early employee. Either way, you will need to incentivize the new joiner, and for that, you will need equity. That's the reason why it is important that you have vesting in place. Vesting means that the founders don't immediately get all the shares in the company that they started. They get them over time. Typically, your shares vest over 4 years, and every month you get to keep 1/48 of your shares. This scheme will allow the startup to recover the equity when a co-founder leaves. It is common to have it in your shareholders' agreement, and if you don't have it, your first investor will typically demand that you add it because it is so common and useful for everyone. But these are the details for another episode. The important thing is that you have this conversation early on with your co-founders. Make sure that everyone has a shared understanding of what it means when someone departs after, let's say, a year. If your company is successful, it is not unlikely that it will take many years, 10 years or more, until you have an exit. And you don't want a part of the equity locked up with a co-founder that departed after a year. That's why I would recommend that you put a vesting schedule in place already early on, ideally when you incorporate the company. And as Melanie mentioned before, it is also very important that you make sure that the IP that is generated is always assigned to the company. Otherwise, the company will be in trouble if a departing co-founder takes IP with them.
So let's talk about funding now. External funding, whether it's from VCs, angel investors, or others, can significantly impact your startup's equity and control. So before jumping in, think carefully about how it will affect your ownership and align with your long-term vision. Timing plays a crucial role here. When you raise funds can influence your equity's value and shift decision-making power. So for example, early funding rounds. Seeking funding early can make sense in some cases, but bear in mind that this can lead to lower valuations, which means more significant equity dilution for founders already in the first round, and shifting more power to early investors. Another thing to consider is the economic climate and trends. The state of the economy and industry trends at the time of fundraising can affect both the terms and the amount of investment you receive. Third, strategic timing. Timing your funding rounds around key milestones can help you secure better terms and valuations by demonstrating progress and reduced risk to investors. In the end, it's essential to understand how the timing of your funding rounds can affect your stake and control over the startup. Educate yourselves on the basics of funding equity investing early on. One other way of funding we mentioned are grants. University grants, especially those tied to intellectual property, can offer valuable support for your startup. However, it's important to fully understand the terms as they might include specific conditions regarding IP ownership. Again, by being informed, you can strategically manage or negotiate IP rights to ensure they align with your startup's goal. Take charge and learn about these aspects early. As I said already, start with resources like Swisspreneurs Masterclass in fundraising, and don't hesitate to seek advice from mentors, industry experts, or legal professionals. Being prepared will help you make the smartest decisions when it's time to raise money and secure your startup's future.